So we said that one of the dialectics that defines the left and right in its most abstract form generally has to do with a focus on the individual versus a focus on society or the collective or the tribe or some kind of group. Another one is an orientation towards conservation or conservativeness, traditionalness, with an orientation on the other side towards progress or progressiveness. And again, these are confused all over the place. And even what we call left and right have shifted in the last, few decades in a number of ways. But it's interesting here because when you talk about reversibility and sustainability, another synonym is conservation. What is it that we want to be able to conserve? And so the conservative principle is focused on what has made it through evolution that is valuable enough that we should conserve it and not fuck it up. And yet, so interestingly, the people who are often called conservatives are not focused on critical aspects of conservation. But if you're talking about biosphere conservation right now, oftentimes they're talking about sociosphere conservation, the conservation of social systems. And you're saying that underneath it is the capacity for humans to thrive and have meaningful lives and relationships. And we would say that that is a function of the biosphere, the sociosphere, and the technosphere and the relationship between them. And we can say very clearly, it's the technosphere ruining the biosphere most of the time. And yet if it ruins the biosphere enough, the technosphere goes because the technosphere depends upon the biosphere. So we have to learn, how do we make a technological built environment that is replenishing, regenerative with the biosphere? And the sociosphere is another really critical one. And I think you'll probably actually have something to add to this that I haven't thought of. When I think of what the fundamental intuition of a conservative is, even if they don't articulate it like this, and the traditionalist kind of impulse, which is, let's go back to the Constitution, let's go back to Christianity or European ideas or the free market or whatever it is, or rigorous monogamy, whatever social structure lasted for a long time. That there's an intuition, even if they don't formally think of it this way logically, that almost everything didn't make it through evolution in terms of social systems. And the few things that did weren't the things that people thought would. So there's a lot of embedded wisdom that wasn't understood, that was very hard earned. And we want to preserve that and not break it because we think we understand it well enough and we might not. And that fundamentally the progressive intuition is that we're dealing with fundamentally novel situations that evolution didn't already figure out, and we need innovation. And of course, the synthesis of that dialectic is we need new innovation that is commensurate with that which should be conserved. And not everything should be conserved, because some things made it through because they won short-term battles while fucking up the long-term whole. And so what things are worth being conserved? What things are not worth being conserved? Did we understand it well enough that we didn't say this isn't worth being conserved out of hubris? And then what progress is commensurate with that, I think, is a good way of thinking about that dialectic.
Yeah, I like it. And I think there's the flip side of it as well, which is that captured inside biblical traditions are some bits of, so basically responses to game theoretic hazards that are consistent with things we've talked about. So, for example, the Christian sense that not only is the world here for humans to make use of, but that we are in effect obligated to do it. That belief fits perfectly in a world where if your population doesn't capture a resource, somebody else is going to. So in other words, that belief structure travels along with a tendency to capture the resources that are available. And to the extent that what that does is it causes the exploitation of a resource, the tools with which those resources could have been exploited in biblical times almost always left a system that would return itself to equilibrium given an opportunity, which isn't true in the modern circumstance. So what we have is a place where there's lots of stuff that is conservative, that there's a very good and often hidden reason that we should preserve. And then there are some places where we'd actually have to upgrade the wisdom because it doesn't fit modern circumstances. And the conservation of the natural world is, I think, a clear case.